You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Hello. I hope you are doing well from wherever you are joining in from. And you are in for a treat today, as today's conversation is jam-packed with all the fun things. I mean, this is a good one. So today I get to bring on one of my soul sisters, Erin Panzarella. And Erin and I actually connected, a few months ago through the space. And it's funny, as I was speaking, I was like, I can't even remember the exact timing of when we did connect. It might even have been a little bit longer than that. But regardless, I'm so grateful for this connection and new friendship with Erin. You know, I'm sure you've heard the phrase before or some rendition of it, but certain people really come into our lives for certain reasons. And Erin definitely feels like one of those people to me, as I just feel that there are so many special reasons for our wonderful conversation. Our wonderful friendship, but also this wonderful conversation. So let's just get into it. So today, we cover an array of different topics, really kind of starting out with Erin's, her own journey to opening up to her own gifts as a medium and channel and energy healer, and then just that evolution that followed during and after. I mean, the evolution, it just kind of goes on and on, but we also had a couple different questions came in from the community that Erin also answered live, so definitely stay tuned for those. And then we do go into as well some just different conversation about limiting beliefs, healing trauma and grief, and really just touching on all the many ebbs and flows that we can really experience in this lifetime. Of course, all for our greater good and evolution, but really doing this work and just being a human, it's really how we move through the ebbs and flows of life, calm seas, stormy seas, and we really get into just highlighting all of it today, which is really one of the reasons why I find this conversation to be just so special, and there's so many nuggets of wisdom as well. I know you guys are going to love Erin and will definitely connect with her as much as I did. Erin is also a fellow podcast host, so definitely go check her out on Everyday Perspectives. I believe we are actually going to be doing a podcast swap at some point, so stay tuned to hear me over on hers as we will flip the mic. And then one other thing too, we chatted about it a little bit in this episode, but I have actually received a couple energy healing and channeling sessions from Erin, both which have been just so pivotal to me in my own journey. They happened at very specific times with some things I've been going through recently. And Erin has really just brought so much healing and light to me in the short time that we've known each other. I just feel just so grateful to be able to introduce her to this community if you're not already familiar with her, and just kind of continue witnessing the way our friendship and relationship just kind of continues to mold and really ebb and flow within itself. So if you are someone who is currently in need of some healing, I highly recommend working with Erin, as her sessions are just so uniquely powerful, and I believe she also has some new fun offerings coming out soon. So definitely stay tuned for those. I know all of you are going to want to get in on that. And just one thing I did just want to note on, as I'm kind of riffing on Erin and all that she does, is any brand or coach that comes on the podcast always comes really highly recommended by me. So I feel like this is just kind of important to make a note on, as I'm not just out here encouraging you guys to go work with anyone and everyone, etc. I am very specific and intentional about not only what gets recommended here on my show or on social media, but also who I elect to open my energy up to as well. So I can just assure you all that really any recommendation that I provide to you, whether publicly or privately through messaging and things like that, please know that it is always completely safe and trustworthy and always just for your own greater good and evolution here in this lifetime and human experience. Which, speaking of, before we jump into our conversation here with Erin, I did want to ensure that you all are familiar with the many benefits of algae nutrition. So you might have heard me talking about algae nutrition, Spirulina Chlorella. You can also head back a couple episodes to hear from the founder of one of my new favorite companies, Energy Bits. Catherine Arnston came on the podcast. So if you want to learn all the details about Spirulina Chlorella, algae in general, what it can do for your health, head back a couple episodes. I'll spare you the details here. However, I did just want to bring it up because I have been taking Energy Bits, both the Spirulina algae tablets and the Chlorella tablets, which one tablet is actually has the same nutritional profile, vitamins, minerals, and nutrients equal to an entire plate of veggies. So these little tablets are about the size of an Advil. You can take them. Some people will opt to take just one a day, will do wonders for your health. I've actually been taking anywhere from about 7 to 10 of each per day. I think NFL, like football players, high level athletes will actually even take upwards of like 100 plus a day. So you can take as many as you want. They're totally safe. I also say nutrition because algae is actually food. It is not a supplement, so our body also knows food better than supplements, so it can easily digest, compound all the vitamins and nutrients, etc., etc. But where I'm going with this is I am just so blown away by the benefits and the healing that I've seen within myself. So I've been really at a pretty optimal state of health here recently in the last, few to several years. I've reversed and healed and worked through a lot of my own issues, but really with no greater intention other than just wanting to try them out, understand what a higher quality of algae does. I have seen so many benefits in literally a few short weeks from taking Energy Bits. So weight loss, clearer skin, longer and stronger hair. My bowel movements have been primed, super consistent. My energy, it just goes all day. And with that energy, it's not like caffeine energy. It's just like this beautiful, sustainable level that, I honestly feel kind of so powerful. I'm more focused, more creative. My workouts have been stronger. Just this added sense of vitality. It just has been honestly just incredible. So if you have not yet checked out Energy Bits, I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you want to learn more, head back a couple episodes to learn from Catherine, the founder, or head over to energybits.com to try some for yourself. If you are going to buy some, definitely use my code LYOS for 20% off. And yeah, honestly, just do a favor for yourself and try these things out. I joke with Catherine in our episode that they're like a magic pill, but after now having been taking them for a few weeks, I will completely attest to that statement that these pills are not pills, that these tablets, these bits of food truly are like little magic pills. I'm just blown away at what they've done for my health already. So use code LYOS for 20% off of your orders over at energybits.com. And now, without further ado, let's jump into today's conversation with the beautiful Erin Panzarella. Enjoy, and I will see you on the other side. All right. Well, Erin, welcome to the show. It's funny. I was just about to say, I feel like this has been a long time coming, but we haven't known each other that long yet. It feels like we've obviously been connected here now and previously. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I definitely feel like we've been connected way before we knew it.
Yes, absolutely. Before we started recording, we were talking about earlier this week how you took yourself on a solo date, which I'm a huge fan of, have not done recently. And I would just love to talk for a second about what inspired you to do so and maybe just kind of what came out of doing that for yourself.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My boyfriend is away, and I was like, I'm going to go on a date with myself. I haven't done it in a very long time. Number one, because we weren't really able to do it. We weren't able to go out a lot. So I haven't done it. And then also, like, these fears come up a lot of like, what will people think if I'm by myself? And I'm also in a very committed relationship. So I'm like, is that weird that I'm going somewhere without my boyfriend? And I can't even think, I may have gone out by myself with him being around, but I don't even know if that's true. Maybe I haven't before, but I just know that spending time with yourself and putting that energy into yourself that you would with other people is so important. So when I was like, I'm going to go on a date with myself, I came home from work, I got ready, I put on makeup, and I was just thinking about how I will always do that for another person because I'm like, oh, I want to look good for them, or like I want to look presentable or whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute. I want to look good for myself and I want to feel good. Like I definitely feel good when I have makeup on, when I don't have makeup on, when I have my hair done, when I don't. I think it's important to love yourself in all phases, but it's really nice to like get dolled up for yourself and then go by yourself. So it was funny because when I was sitting there, I was by myself. So I was like looking at my phone and I was like, who can I text? And I was like, wait a minute, this is all about spending time with myself. And I was like kind of looking for distractions to distract myself from the fact that I was by myself. And then I was like, that's kind of the opposite of what this is about. So of course I wasn't going to start talking to myself in the middle of a solo date because then people would think I was legitimately nuts, which is okay in most parts, but I wasn't going to have a conversation with myself. But I really just like put my phone away and was like sitting and like I was talking to the bartender a bit and really just enjoying my own energy. And I just had so many revelations. Like number one, I'm still really self-conscious about like going to a space by myself, which is why I know that I need to do it more because it's really important to spend time with your own energy and to do things that you would do with other people, with yourself, because you deserve that. Like going out together is a way to honor your relationship. Like I think that like when you go on a date, like it's a way to like spend time with the other person, honor what you have, to have fun, to enjoy yourself, change of pace, do all those things. So why wouldn't you do that with yourself? So that was just something that I keep coming back to, and it really inspired me again to remember to go on like solo trips. Like I've been thinking about going on solo vacations, and I remember bringing it up with my boyfriend a few years like last year, and I was like, I think I'm going to go on a solo vacation. Like, I hope you're not offended, but like, I really think I'm going to like go on a trip by myself. And he was like, no, that's like fine. Like, do what you want to do, which I was like really happy that he said that. But there's all these fears. It's like, oh, what will he think? Like that I don't want to go on a vacation with him. And there's all these things that come up where like, oh, what will people think? Like, will people think we broke up? Like there's like all these ideas that flood in of what other people will judge me by doing something with myself. And I was like, that is a really silly reason to not do something, by focusing on another's opinion instead of what I want to do, instead of spending my time with myself. So a lot of stuff came up in just like a small, and I wasn't even there for long. I was there for like an hour, but it was just a really nice time by myself. And also just so many things came up that I was like, oh, there's a lot of things I have to work through. And there's also a lot of opportunity to like do more things by myself. So it was really great.
I love that. It shows so much too, just about you and your partner and the relationship that you've just cultivated and intertwined between the two of you. being comfortable to still do things on your own, but then also still having those very valid feelings and emotions and, external thoughts and things that come into play with it all. But I just think that's so inspirational and such a good reminder for those of us, whether in partnership or not in partnership right now. I mean, it's just the reminder for solo time is so critical. I also wanted to just make note on what you mentioned about the makeup or no makeup, because it's so interesting. And to me, it just shows how true it is that we can feel energy, because I'll have days where I see myself in no makeup and I'm like, girl, you are beautiful. Like, I love myself in no makeup. And then I'll put makeup on, have the same reaction. And I'm like, ooh, like, pop those features or whatever. But then I'll also have days where I put on makeup and I'm like, ugh, like just not feeling it, or see myself without and just not feeling it. And, I think it's just totally human and okay to feel both feelings about yourself, and that it's really just the valid experience that we kind of go through.
Definitely. Like, I have a lot of times like done my hair and my makeup to feel better. Like, whenever I was sick, like back in the day, I used to dye my hair. Like, it just like it was like whenever I was sick and by myself, I would dye my hair, which, number one, like there was so many chemicals in that, but I was like, whatever. Yeah. But I just would like do that to feel better. And it did make me feel better a lot. But now I'm like also leaning into the fact, like, wait a minute. Number one, appearances aren't everything. And it's beautiful to like doll yourself up and to like do that. But it's also so important to come back to yourself, like without makeup, natural. Like, they're both such valid feelings. And there are times when I put on makeup and I'm like, this doesn't look like me. Like, I don't know if you like, whenever I'm in a wedding and they do all that makeup, I'm like, this does not even look like me.
Yes, totally. Yeah. It's such an interesting experience. Well, I would love to, for anyone who's new to you or your work. So you are a very powerful, number one, energy healer, but then also medium, and you just have so many gifts internally that you're also continuing to uncover. And I know we've done a couple sessions together as well. And I know you recently kind of discovered your gifts, and, they've always been a part of us, but I'll let you get into your story eventually as to the detail of all of that, because I find you so inspirational and equally just such an expander as well. But before we jump into kind of the background, the history, the nitty gritty of who you are today, do you think that your younger self, your past you, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever, would ever imagine or believe that you're doing the work that you're currently doing here today?
Absolutely not. Which I think is like the most amazing part of this healing journey. Because like you were saying, like, I always had these gifts. I really have. And I know that so many people that I've encountered, they've always had these gifts, but we shut them off, especially based on like what we experienced in our life. So when I was growing up, I was very disconnected from anything greater than myself. Like, I really just didn't feel connected because my dad died when I was very young. So I kind of remember, kind of don't, but I think I've concluded that I have this existential crisis. So like, I don't believe in anything bigger than myself. And if there is something, I hate them because like they did something really terrible to me. And I really carried this feeling of trauma and pain throughout so much of my life into my early 20s. And I was very much in a victim mindset, like, oh my God, poor me. And I was also very self-sabotaging, where I would just constantly take these actions that were not good for myself because I didn't believe I was worthy of anything good. So I would always sabotage relationships, sabotage my own health. I would take all of these really toxic actions. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I was like, oh, wait, there's a different way to operate and there's a different way to do things. And my mom, she's been a Reiki master for a very long time. I don't even know how long now, but I always had kind of like this spiritual influence in my life, but I rejected it. Like, I was like, that's really weird. Like, cause I didn't know many people doing it. So if you had told me a few years ago, I'd be doing this, I'd be like, no freaking way. Like, that's not my path. And I would follow like the path. I thought that I was going to be a doctor initially, and then that didn't work out. So then I went into accounting, and I do accounting in a 9 to 5 right now. And I kind of thought that I was going to follow like this traditional path of like having a career and like following that and being successful in that way. But I was doing it only because that's what I thought I had to do. Mm. And I really was living this life because of other people or what I thought other people wanted from me. And I thought that that would make me happy. I thought that, oh, okay, I'll just like get it all together, take the like traditional steps, college, career, family, whatever, and then it'll be good. Then I'll be okay. And I realized very quickly that that's not the path for me. And following what everyone else wanted me to do was only going to lead to my true demise. I was very sick, very unhealthy, and just constantly living out these very toxic patterns. So I realized there had to be another way to do things. So now I'm so happy that I've understood that we can heal and we can change our whole life, because that's what's helped me connect to my gifts.
Mm. Cool. If you don't mind me asking, what were some of those initial steps to making change and starting to shift things in your life?
So it's so funny because I always think about like, what was the moment that things changed? But there's so many different little things. And I think that's also the beauty of life. Like, everything that we went through got us to this point here and now. So I can definitely pinpoint certain memories of like, oh, that was a huge turning point. So we'll go to those. My mom, she had gotten me a numerology report. I don't know how many years ago, maybe like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I'm not sure. And having this report and like seeing in front of me of how accurate it was describing who I was, things I've experienced. They had like different dates and like, in this year you would experience this, and they were true. And I was like, how is this possible? And it was just this like such a big connection to something that I was like, I don't understand this at all. But it was this really big opening for me. Like, maybe there is something bigger than myself. And that seed was so important for me because it opened up to this like whole other life. So I started to ask my mom more things or like get suggestions from her. And I was invited to this event for the numerology report, and she wasn't going. And it was kind of like this thing that I needed to do separate from her, because I like still was like, you're weird and whatever. So I went to this event and I just felt the connection of the people there. They were so welcoming. It was so like this beautiful community. And I was like, I want to be a part of something like this. I was like, I want to be surrounded by people who are trying to better themselves, who are trying to understand things that we can't really conceptualize as humans. And that was like a really big pivoting moment for me. So I went to this thing and still was living my life pretty much similarly to before. So I was very much addicted to Adderall. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was not eating because of the Adderall, which I wanted. And I just was having all of these health issues. And I was constantly just like feeling like I needed to be perfect. So I would take these really toxic like behaviors, and I was still living like that. So I had this numerology report. So I was like 2 sides of it. I was like the very human, very like triggered, very toxic, and then the spiritual side of me. And as I started to like learn more about numerology, one of the first books that I read was Many Lives, Many Masters. And I forgot who it's by, but it was just like, whoa. It was talking about past lives and things I had never thought about before, that I was like, oh my God, there's so much more. So I just kept getting like following these little threads. So I was just kind of like reading different materials, and then also like reading things. Is it Dr. Eben Alexander who wrote it? But it was just like reading more and being really curious and open was what really helped transform my life. So I was in the spiritual and human. And then I realized I couldn't live 2 opposite sides of the spectrums. I was like, I'm so inauthentic. And it was starting to eat me alive. like, I was like, I'm saying I'm spiritual and I'm like getting these connections and I'm started to meditate, which meditation is like one of the biggest tools I will suggest to anyone. But I was doing all these things. I was going to yoga. I started to like work out to like help my body. And I was like, but I'm still like disconnection. And then my relationship started to fall apart because I was like turning into the spiritual person. And he was like really freaked out by that. And it was just all these things started to happen. And I just got so tired of being inauthentic that I poured the Adderall down the drain. And ever since then, it's just been like this constant evolution and continuing of letting go of the toxic habits that really were like weighing me down and leaning more into the ones that energize and empower me.
Yes. I relate to, so much of that. I think a lot of our listeners can as well in some capacity or piece or another. So fast forwarding a little bit, then you've kind of, gone through the inauthentic patterns and everything like that to now today, or, the last year and a half where you are full on channeling, working with clients all over, so connected to the light, obviously still human at the same time. That's never going to go away. We just got to learn how to dance with it. What was kind of that, what was that like beginning piece to fully kind of like entrusting in your gifts as a medium, working with energy, and then starting to work with other individuals as well?
So I was attuned in as a Reiki master in November of 2019. And I just, because my mom was a Reiki master, like I knew about the energies, but I finally was like, this is something that I want to do. Like I started to realize how unhappy I was in the like office setting and just like realizing like, I'm definitely meant for more. And I actually think it's like really amazing how we're so different that people like some people are meant to work in an office. Some people are meant to do certain things, but just for me personally, that's not the path. And I definitely am leaning into how to evolve and change and to get myself out of this office setting. So I became a Reiki master in November of 2019. And I just felt so connected to the practice and really just started to do a lot of Reiki on myself. I definitely think that was a really big opening part for me of just tuning into my own energy, feeling the energy, because there was like, I felt so much that I was like, this is real. Like I am feeling this energy. I felt so connected to it. So I think that was a really important part of eventually getting to me to where I am now. So then November 2019 and then 2020 hit. And obviously we now have a lot of time to be inside, be with ourselves. I wasn't going to the office anymore. I was working from home. So a lot of time opened up for me, and also just a lot of time of reflection and like understanding like, okay, collectively, energetically, there's a very heavy energy. It's very fearful based. So much stuff is going on. And I was getting very caught and sucked into the fear of what's going to happen. And then I was realizing, I'm very afraid of death. I was like collectively as a society, we are terrified of death. We're terrified of getting sick. And I just started to really tune inward. I was then meditating consistently, which I think is so important to how my channeling portal opened, because meditating, taking the time for yourself just to tune in to the space was super important for me. And I was going out in nature a lot. So in the past year, I've been connecting to nature and going outside on hikes. I'm lucky enough to live in New York City, but have a trail right by my apartment where I can go outside. So I started to do that a lot. And then I was just like, being in nature, the energy of nature was just like so connecting. And I just evolved and was doing all this shadow work, and just all these things together at once really, I think, blew me open energetically. So I was meditating, nature, all these things. And earlier in 2021, so in January, I was out in nature. And that's when like my biggest like aha moments come is like whenever I'm outside. And I kind of just got this message, like, open your mouth and we'll come through. And so I started speaking, and I like did this kind of like invocation, like inviting people to come through, which I had never done before. And it kind of just flew to me. And I was like, I'm open to receive messages. And all of a sudden I started speaking, and I was like, what? And the message that came through that day was so vital to me understanding my own connection, to me understanding that I am worthy of the life that I want, and to let go of all these fears that were holding me back. Because since I got attuned in Reiki, I've been kind of like teetering, like, okay, I want to do energy healing. I want to do this. I want to do that. How do I get there? And I wasn't really taking these active steps to like eventually transition out of my job. So I was like racking my brain, and I'm like, how am I going to get out of this setting I don't want to be in? But I was still fearful. I was afraid, like, oh, like I got my attunement online, so that's not valid. Like I would have all these things come up that were holding me back. And this message that came through on that cold day in January was like, it's time to let it go. You are meant to do this. You are worthy of doing this. This is your path. Let it all go. You're going to start your energy healing business. You're going to start channeling for people. And this is the first time I was channeling. So it was like, I am? It was like, I was like, okay. So this message was so deep, and it was like that clear cognizance, like that feel, like the clairsentience. I mean, like just that knowing and that feeling. This was true. This was deep. And I need to follow this because I know in my core of every single thing that this is the path for me. So when that message came through, it really helped me let go of all these doubts, because it was so deep to my core that I just knew it had to be. It was the path I had to take. And when I don't listen to the messages, when I don't listen to these really deep sensational feelings, I suffer for it. And so that was such a big moment. So I opened up my business in February of this year, and I started to do, and initially I was like, okay, I'm doing energy healing. But as soon as I started doing that, I was like, oh, all these messages are coming through. So I'm going to be doing that. And it's literally shifted so much since even February. Like I started offering different things, and I'm really just leaning into the evolution of it, because I'm realizing more and more as I tune in more, as I uncover whatever is coming up, I'm changing and evolving all the time, that I can't just commit to okay, I'm going to do this because maybe tomorrow I'm not going to do it. And just leaning into that evolution and following the messages that come through is such a vital part of my life. And I've seen when I don't listen to it very recently, I get sick. I have no energy. So I can't not listen anymore, because I'm not, they're not allowing me.
Yeah, you have no choice. You're still working your accounting job, right? A nonprofit too?
Yes. So my 9-to-5 is for a nonprofit, a big nonprofit in New York. And then I also have a part-time job for doing government grants. So there's a lot.
How is that switching back and forth? I guess I'll ask.
So it is actually becoming a lot more seamless, because I'm not switching anymore. I'm actually using the spiritual practices in my 9-to-5. And I'm using, it's really, I think, about that integration of realizing they don't have to be separate. And that has been I'm so happy you asked this. That has been one of the biggest revelations that I've had, because I always oh my God, these are two completely separate things. Can't bring any of it into it. But when I started to realize, number one, it's inauthentic for me to not be spiritual in my job. So when I started to be spiritual, people started asking me about things that I never would have thought. And I heard the other day, my boss called me a guru, and not about something with accounting though. And I just thought it was hilarious, because that's a very spiritual term, and I don't really necessarily believe in gurus, but it was just funny that she used that. And every time I speak to someone in the office, there's definitely this therapeutic role that I will take. And I'm realizing that it's not separate. It's actually, this is all part of my journey. And yeah, of course, I don't want to crunch numbers all day. So there's when I'm doing a spreadsheet, I'm yeah, this really isn't spiritual. But the way that I think about it and approach it now is definitely spiritual. This has been one of the biggest lessons of my life, is how to bring this spirituality wherever I go and how to lean into it, because there's a reason why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why I went to school for accounting. Like, when you have a business, you need to know accounting. And I'm just seeing the opportunities that are coming into play. And no, this is not my forever job, but I'm also working for a nonprofit. We're helping people and I want to help people. So there's just like so many things that I'm learning, that they don't have to be these two separate entities. I can actually bring them all together. And yeah, this is not my forever. And I don't feel passionate about working behind a desk all day, but I'm definitely making it work and realizing when it's my time to go, I will go. I don't have that overwhelming fear that I'm not going to leave. Like, that was my biggest fear, that I was going to get too comfortable, not going to leave, and like not going to know when it's time. And I just keep getting the messages when I tune in saying like, this is not forever. You're going to leave exactly when you're supposed to. You have to be here right now. And that's a beautiful thing. Like, lean into the chaotic fact that you work a 9 to 5, work a part-time, have a podcast, have the energy healing, lean into all of that, because it's not going to be like this forever.
Wow. That is, that's just so inspirational and empowering to hear as well, especially because I feel like, you know, a lot of us, myself included, like I've also worked for myself for the last 4 years, going on 5 years with a digital marketing company, also helping nonprofits more in like the PR event marketing realm, and have since transitioned out of that. I had some different events that the universe and my guides were like, okay, the time is right now. If we don't, you know, so I was very much pushed, but your scenario feels so peaceful and is such a beautiful, just viewpoint that you can have it all. And that, you know, I think whenever and this is just my personal opinion, whenever the era of the entrepreneurs and, you know, some of these more work from home jobs, it kind of became a thing of like, okay, we all need to quit our jobs right now, get out of the office. Everybody works from home, but like, it doesn't have to be like that. And you said it earlier, an office also works well for some people. And I've witnessed that myself. So I'm so glad that you pointed that out. And with that, you also push out so much good social content. Yes, podcast, all the things you do, but you also like, your social media is firing. So the fact that you can also manage that is just, you're incredible. Like, you're truly doing it all.
Thank you so much. Like, writing has always been like my first love. And like, when I forget that, like, I'm very disconnected. So I was just like writing, and then I love the creativity aspect. I love like just like creating things that look pretty and like aesthetically pleasing. Like, that's just part of who I am. I love doing it. Part of my my human design is like a very outer vision, which is like my strongest sense. So I realized that having things outside of me looking beautiful is actually the way that like I am like very tuned in. So I'm like seeing like what works for me. And then I also take a lot of inspiration from the outside. So like when I'm doing a lot and doing all these things, so many different revelations come to me because I'm so outer visioned. And I used to think that that was a bad thing, that like I couldn't, like, inspiration couldn't come from the inside, but I actually like have leaned into, this is a really beautiful part of me. And like, this is the way I operate. So I'm just like really leaning into the fact that I operate. I'm also a manifesting generator. We have many different hats all at once. And I was always shamed for that growing up. Like, why can't you stick to one thing? Or like, why do you have to multitask all the time? You can't focus. But I am focused on many different things at once. And I'm able to do it. And that's how I have a lot of energy. So it's like, this is the way I'm built. And leaning into that building and realizing other people are not built this way, and they have their own beauty and their own way of doing things, which is different than me, but that's beautiful too, has been such an important realization. And I'm still not perfect. I'm a human, you know, like I get upset about my job and I'm like, why am I still doing this? And I get upset, like, why can't I just do one thing? Because it would be a lot easier. Like, I get that, of course, all the time. That's the human experience. But I also am learning not to like shame myself for those feelings either.
Yeah, so cool. So that leads me to my next question. Whether it's about channeling and energy healing or, you know, just life in general, does imposter syndrome ever pop up for you, or do you still have limiting beliefs that you still have to work through?
Yes. all the time. But I think, again, that's like coming back to like why this human journey is so amazing, because we're never done. And I think that's such a beautiful part where I used to be like, oh my God, I thought I learned this already. I thought I healed this already. And I always hear this analogy, like healing is like a spiral. So we think it's like a straight line or up and down line, but it's really a spiral. So you do heal, and a lot of beautiful healing comes and you heal some things, but then like another thing comes up. And I think that's going to be part of this human experience. If we were not meant to like have all this healing, we would be just straight up energy, not manifested on this human realm. So I think that it's like important to acknowledge the humanness and understand, like, I have a lot of limiting beliefs that come up still, and they're rooted a lot from childhood. Like, I still have this deep rooted fear of abandonment that I've healed in so many ways. It doesn't come up daily in my relationship anymore. I don't have these dreams that my boyfriend's going to leave me, which I used to have all the time. I've done so much shadow work and healing on these limiting beliefs, which are really just habitual thought patterns that we continue to believe that no longer serve us. Like, that's the way that I view a limiting belief.
And such a good description of them. Thank you for that. That was a really, I've heard them described differently, but that was on point.
That's what I just like, I feel that's the way that they operate, because it's really hard to change something you've been thinking about your whole life, especially at an age when you're a child. You absorb things like a sponge. Everything is egocentric. It's all centered around you. So you come to believe that you're the reason why people left. You're the reason why the person didn't love you perfectly. So you form that belief. And then over years, it just keeps getting validated by outside experiences, because we're dealing with humans all the time. We're not perfect. I know I've hurt a lot of people. Other people have hurt me a lot. So we keep getting these beliefs validated over and over again, that of course we believe we're going to be abandoned, because life has shown us that we have been abandoned before. But that's only one way of looking at it. And I've realized with abandonment specifically, I have this fear of abandonment, but I was always the one abandoning myself. And I always feared people would leave me. So I would abandon myself in order to control the outcome of them not leaving me. But then, of course, they left me because I was abandoning myself, and they were a mirror for my relationship with them.
Oh my gosh. My mind is like, I'm having so many personal revelations right now. Keep going. Sorry.
No, but like, I always now know that fear of abandonment always shows up when I abandon myself. And I would try and counteract the abandonment by it's the cycle. So once I brought that up to my conscious center, instead of having it these unconscious, subconscious, that's like that awareness came, and I was like, oh, so this is what I do. This is why I did it, because of X, Y, and Z that happened in my past. And the past does not equal the future. So I can change the way that I show up, and then the energy will change. And the limiting belief of abandonment comes up, but you learn to work with it. And I learned to understand when it comes up that it's an illusion and it's not true. So I still have things to heal. Obviously, there's still some subconscious, unconscious beliefs that believe that still, but I'm not so quick to be triggered or react to it so like grandly. I'm not going to like be so reactive, because I'm aware of it. And I'm like, oh, so this is coming up for me right now. So this is what I can do. Of course, I react sometimes. I reacted a few weeks ago out of my fear of abandonment, and I'm not letting myself feel shame over it, because shame continues the cycle as well. And I think it's just really important to remember, like, as humans, we're going to have limiting beliefs, but we can always evolve them, and they can have a smaller and smaller impact on the way that we show up.
I love that. Thank you. Same side of that coin, or maybe different side of that coin, having experienced so much just traumas and abandonment and grief throughout your life, that you've had to cycle through, obviously it can cause, us to close our heart and to kind of carry these shadows with us and things like that. But at the same time, it can also kind of open our heart and teach us compassion for others. in what aspect do you feel that you've also, through all these experiences, just developed really just a new sense of, or a more heightened sense of understanding for where others sit in their own journeys?
That's a really great question. I've always been like kind of non-judgmental. I really have operated out of that space. Like I always let people come to me with whatever they were feeling with this open. And I really think, like you're saying, it is in response to my grief and in response to feeling that loss all the time. Because deep down, I know nothing is forever. And I know that this human journey is very small in the grand scheme of things, and I've lost very important people in my life. So I have this like deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for who is in my life now. And I want to make sure that the interactions that we have are ones filled with love and compassion, because I know at the end of the day, they're not going to be with me forever. And energetically, it's a little different because, of course, like my dad who passed away, I know he's with me every day. He's with me every second of every day. But it's not the same in the physical. I can't see him. Like he won't be with me to dance with me at my wedding, and like he won't be able to see his grandkids. And that's like really difficult for me to grasp sometimes. So even though energetically I feel him and I know we're connecting in a deeper way in a lot of ways, like I've tapped into his energy recently, and his energy is actually like a lot lighter than it was when he was a human. And he was like, I viewed him kind of like very like stern, but his energy is actually, I mean, he was always like a joker, but his energy is like very like loving and light. So that's really cool to see his energy. But of course, I'm like sad that I don't have those human experiences with him too. So I think that going through that loss, especially recently, because I was older on my active spiritual journey already, I was with him when he passed away. Like I was like literally like holding him, like I was there watching him take his last breath. I had this overwhelming like sense of gratitude for everyone in my life, and realizing like we're not here forever in this human realm. So like I'm going to love the people that I can so deeply. And that opens myself up to being hurt really deeply too. Mm-hmm. And I did close down a lot when I was younger. Like I was so fearful. I would physically like hunch my body in, and like my heart would close. And so now so many times I have to use this like phrase, stay open, keep your heart open. Keep your heart open, to like remind myself to not close down. And that has been a very helpful practice for me. And over time, I noticed that I don't have to use it as much because it's not my necessarily natural reaction anymore, because I've done so much healing around the heart chakra and around my grief. But I do still, when I'm like really feeling like scared of loss or feeling that, I feel my body doing that. I just have to stay open and really lean into that, because I really know like the reason we're here is to love and to connect with people. And I just feel so like so grateful to know that in the way that I do. And I just know that like closing my heart down does nothing but hurt me and the other person. So it's really about leaning into the fact that, yeah, like love comes with loss. Grief only exists because we love so hard. And you can't escape grief. It happens to all of us in different ways. It could be through a death. It could be through the loss of a version of yourself as you once knew it. There's so many different types of grief. But I just know that in order to experience everything that I came here to experience, I have to stay open and keep my heart open.
Yeah. Oh, I was envisioning a lotus flower as you were saying that. And then like you were reminding me of a lotus flower actually. So I love that. Oh my gosh, you have a lotus flower tattooed on your back. Amazing. We were talking, I think before we started recording, about how we can get surprised and then like, but also not surprised. This is like such an example that is, oh, I love that so much. I feel like I could cry.
I know. I'm so connected to the lotus. Like just like, I feel like no mud, no lotus. Like it really is like that embodiment of like, you really have to go through all of this darkness in order to open. And that doesn't necessarily mean like life's supposed to be all dark and then you have these revelations. Like, of course, I've had so many beautiful revelations from joy. And I think that's so important to honor as well, because a lot of people are like, the hold on to the suffering, the hold on to like these really hard stories about themselves. Like, oh my God, I've gone through all this pain and that's who I am. But it's so important to remember, like, no, you're also joy and love and all these beautiful things too. And those are just as expansive. But it is true. Most of the time when we're having these huge revelations, they come out of hard times. And it's important to honor both of that. And that's, again, why we're here. That's why we came to be a human. If we were supposed to have like all this light, joy, love all the time, we wouldn't have manifested here on this earthly plane.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so true. I could talk to you all afternoon about this. There's so much more that I'd like to dive into. Oh, wow, that was amazing. One quick question, and then we had a couple questions sent in from our community that I do want to honor those and definitely have you answer those. But you mentioned right in the midst of all this about how we can grieve the loss, the different identities or kind of, faces and shiftings that we kind of evolve with individually. Do we also grieve others shifting identities, like when someone isn't the same person I once knew?
Totally. And I think that's why like relationships are so interesting, because like over time, people will be so like holding on to someone's older version that they will like keep looking for that older version of the other person when that person is no longer that version. So we'll grieve that and we'll hold on to this person like, but they were like this before, like, can't we go back to that? And sometimes that person will never go back to that way of being, which is a beautiful thing. But it also means that we have to let go of some people in our lives. And like, as we shift and change, we have to let go of our old versions of ourselves if we choose to do that. And we also have to realize that other people might not resonate with the version of us who we are now. They might resonate with our old version of who we are. And I think that's a really difficult experience, because I know when people come into our lives, there's a reason for it. There's a connection there, and it's either to teach us a lesson that we need to know, and then they're supposed to pass through, or the people stay with us for a very long time. There's always that interconnection. So it's really hard when someone is changing a lot to honor the fact that they're not who we knew them as. And I feel like there's still that connection there. So people will like really like search to make that person the old version of them, or to like change their new version into a version that they're more comfortable with. And it can be really difficult. Like I know for myself, like friendships, old relationships, they had to shift into us no longer being together. And that's really difficult, because the version of me doesn't match the version of them anymore. And I used to be someone who connected with them, or they used to be someone who connected with me, and we both changed. And now here we are. And I think it's really beautiful to honor relationships for what they are, and to also like not have hard feelings about it. Like honor, like the most loving thing we could do for each other is let each other go when it's time. Mm. And it's really hard. It's really difficult. A lot of people don't know how to do that. I still like hold on to old versions of other people. I hold on to versions of myself. So I get it's really, really hard. And we can, of course, grieve another person for who they were. And I think that like, that's the beauty and like scary part of relationships, but we signed up for it.
Totally. I see that in the mother-daughter relationship too.
Yeah, definitely.
Parent-child can be, either one.
Definitely.
This has been such a good conversation. Okay. So we had a couple questions sent in from our community that I definitely do want to get to. These questions relate to mostly your gifts as a healer and channel and whatnot. So if you're ready, I will run through them.
I'm ready.
Cool. First question. I feel like my clair gifts are starting to develop. any tips for trusting versus second guessing in this process?
Yeah, so that's so exciting. I also feel like a lot of the times we'll say they're starting to develop, but they were actually always here. And we're actually breaking down the things that were blocking us from those gifts. So I think that's like such an important thing. And I know that me and you were talking about this before. A lot of the times we'll be like, oh, is this in my head? Or like, who am I to be able to do this? And I'm going to say this message that came through you, but like, you are you. And if you are recognizing that these gifts are there, then who are you to not go for them? So it's really important to trust, which it's a muscle. Like trust is a muscle. So I think that starting with smaller things maybe could be like this helpful thing. So like if you say like, I'm going to write every day, and then you stick to that, because like I'm going to write for 5 minutes every day, like a very small thing, and you stick to that, then you start to trust yourself. Like, hey, I committed to myself. I trust myself that I'm going to stick to this and do it. And I think that with the gifts, that was something that was like really important for me to trust, because at first I wasn't trusting myself. So the gifts weren't presenting themselves, like they weren't being shown. So as soon as I started to trust, like, hey, I'm showing up, hey, I'm meditating, I'm doing all these things, then the gifts started to really become louder. And I was able to break down the things that were blocking them from me. And it's a very individual process. I think it's different for everyone on how you connect. So it's about like tuning in and seeing how you connect best. So I said writing because writing is something that's best for me, but that might be for you, like doing yoga, meditating. I think meditation is good for everyone. So I would say definitely meditate, just incorporating a lot of time for yourself to notice the thoughts that come up and realize you're separate from the thoughts. And just really just tuning into that connection in whatever way feels good for you is something that's so important for me, because my gifts are really, really loud when I'm doing the things that feel good for me, when I'm like in nature. That's like one of the biggest ways they always show up, when I'm spending time in nature, or when I'm writing a lot, like my channeling will come through all the time. But when I'm not doing those things, the gifts don't present themselves as much. So I think it's about really committing to the practices that make you feel connected. And then you'll see the gifts kind of will flow in a way different way than ever before.
I love that. So fun. So next question. We had a couple of kind of variations of this question. We kind of talked about it a little bit before. Do we all have magical powers? If so, how do we know what they are?
Yes.
And I love the phrase magical powers, by the way.
Yes, me too. Yes. And they're different for everyone, and we connect in different ways. Like I was just saying before, like writing is something that I connect to. And when I write, I am definitely able to channel. But some people are able to channel maybe through thoughts, maybe through feelings, maybe through hearing things. There's a lot of different ways that we can connect. So I think it's important to recognize what way works for you. So if you're like someone who likes to move a lot, if you're someone who like constantly wants to move, maybe like the way that you interpret your gifts is through feeling. And if you're someone who likes to speak a lot, maybe you have a podcast, maybe that's something that you could actually like bring out by speaking out loud, the channelings. And I think that it's looking what you're naturally drawn to and really honing in on those individual magical powers, because we all have them in our own ways, and then leaning really hard into them. So like just continuously, consistently showing up to them every single day has been such an important part. And again, we're human, so maybe that's not every day, but I'm a really firm believer in, as long as it's the majority of the time, it doesn't have to be all the time, as long as it's like consistently what you're doing. So like the like 80-20 kind of rule. So like if you're consistently showing up, it doesn't have to be 100%. We're human. We're not perfect. We also have lives. Like we have relationships. We have other people. We have to eat. We have to work. We have all these different things going on. But as long as you're taking the time to tune into yourself in the way that feels connected to you, I know that your powers are going to magically present themselves. And I am so passionate about telling everyone that they're the ones who hold the keys to their own life, because only you know what your powers are. And some people might say like, oh my God, you're a great speaker. And that might help you like kind of understand, like see what other people say about you, see what they think is good about you. But only you can truly know in your heart of hearts what is good for you. Because someone can say, oh, you're a beautiful speaker, but maybe you don't like speaking. You know, like maybe there's things that just like don't feel right for you. And that could be number one, because you're uncomfortable, you've never done it before. And like but I think that tuning into what really like lights your soul up and what feels good. And like sometimes you're afraid to do it, but you know, like this is really good for me. And this is what I need to do, even if you're scared. Like I always know what I need to do, and I'll convince myself otherwise because I'm afraid. But I always do it anyway, because I'm like, this is what's going to expand me. This is what's going to help me grow. So I think it's really important to find what you are naturally drawn to and keep developing those, because that's where your gifts are.
Such a good tip as well from, I think I just got a package. As well, same thing from a human design perspective. I feel like that's also relatable. I'm a generator. Hey, Maverick. Hello, Maverick. He's been coming into a lot of my recent episodes, so that's fun. A lot of people know Maverick by now. From a human design perspective, too, same thing as a generator. And I don't know if you feel this as a man, Jen, but sometimes before I would get kind of confused because people would be attracted to my energy. And just because, like you were saying, I could do something or I was really good at something, you know, like speaking, but I hate speaking. I actually love speaking, but you know, people would I could get very confused in that, well, people want this from me. They're like eating it up and I'm good at this, but then was always left with that just kind of emptiness of like, but there has to be something more or something different. So I see how that relates totally.
I think that's such an important point, because a lot of what I've been leaning into lately is just because I can do something doesn't mean I should.
Yes.
And that's like going back to like what people want from you, or like even like with me, I was good with numbers. So like be an accountant, do that. But like, is it what I should be doing? Like, no, it's not what I will be doing with my life forever. But I got lost in that, what I should be doing. And then I chose things because I was good at them. But just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you should do it or you have to do it.
Such good advice. That kind of leads to the next question that we got, which is a really sweet question. So in reflecting on the work you do, what is something you are most grateful for?
I would say my connection to self and realizing that everyone is a mirror of me. I am also just like really grateful to hold space for other people, because I just know it's such a humbling feeling to help someone connect back to themselves. Like to help someone realize that they are so powerful and they have all that they need within has been the most humbling and beautiful experience I can never connect. When someone is like, oh my God, that resonates so deeply with me, or like, oh my God, like I feel like I can trust myself, that overwhelms me with gratitude in so many ways, because I know what it's like to not trust myself. I know what it's like to not feel connected. I know what it feels like to doubt myself, or imposter syndrome coming up, like you were saying before. Like, of course I feel that. I know what that's like. So to help someone recognize their own power is the most like humbling experience. I have so much gratitude for that, and also connects me back to me. Because I realize every time like I work with a client, like the message that comes through is also for me. So they're like, oh my God, I resonate with that so much. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. And it reminds me of the connection between us and everyone else. And we're so unique. We are all so beautiful. We all have our own magical powers, like they so beautifully stated in the previous question. But we're also so connected to each other too. So it's like, how do we connect to ourselves? And then how do we connect to other people? And I am just so grateful through this work that I've been able to connect to myself deeper through connecting with other people. And it's just like so unbelievably beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Where can people find you to connect, follow your journey, potentially work with you, which I highly recommend?
Thank Thank you. Yeah, so I have an Instagram. It's really hard to spell, so we'll put it in the show notes. It's at Erin Panzarella. So I put so much content on my Instagram. Like I do a lot of my writings and I talk about my sessions and how to work with me. I also have my website, erinpanzarella.com, where you can find out about my sessions. I have a podcast, Everyday Perspectives with Erin Panzarella, and I also have my own Instagram for them. No one follows it, so please come check it out if you're interested. That's at Everyday Perspectives Podcast. And I am just like trying to connect with more people. Like I love people who are interested in spirituality, connecting to themselves. So if you don't want to work with me, just come find me and hang out with me, because I am just like, my life purpose is to connect with other people and to like show everyone how empowered they are by me uncovering my own power. So if you're into that kind of thing, come connect with me.
So fun. All right. Before we close out, and your podcast, have we stated the name of your podcast yet? Did you just say it? Everyday Perspectives. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure, because your show, you are a really good interviewer. So
thank you.
All right. So before we officially wrap up, I like to end all my episodes with some loving your own soul questions, which are some of my own, just on the spot, kind of intuitive questions. It's actually funny, right before we jump on here together, I kind of make some notes of what I wanted to ask you for these. And one of them was, if you were a flower, what type of flower do you think you would be? But I think we already answered it.
Definitely the lotus.
Cool. I love that. As soon as when we were talking, I was like, oh my God, this is funny. What is your, astrologically speaking, your sun, moon, and rising sign?
So I am a Gemini sun, a Scorpio moon, and an Aries rising. It's a very interesting dynamic. I know you're an Aries sun.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, like navigate. And once, like when I was younger, I really understood the Gemini because I was very two-faced, and like my shadow self was very apparent in the Gemini. But as I lean into a lot more of like astrology, I understand the Scorpio moon and the Aries rising so much. A lot of people are like, you don't really seem like a Gemini to me. And I'm like, yeah, but Gemini sun, Scorpio moon, and Aries rising is actually a very good epitome.
That's so cool. I like the Aries rising. I don't hear of that often. Do you know your North Node by chance?
I'm not sure. I forget.
Cool. I'm curious to see in relation to just your work and your evolution. Be interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. Your human design is a manifesting generator, as we already spoke of. Is there anything else interesting, whether your profile or anything that kind of like sticks out to you about your own human design chart? I know you mentioned your outer vision earlier.
It's definitely the emotional. So I am an emotional manifesting generator, and understanding that has been a game changer for me. I also found out that my emotional wave is a tribal wave. So that means that like I climb up and I climb up and I climb up, and then I like crash down, which is very difficult at times. But it also is so accurate that I actually understand how to work with it better. Is that like I tend to have energy build up, and I won't really say anything anymore. And then all of a sudden I explode. And that explains so much about the way I've dealt with things emotionally. And for my own healing journey, learning that has been so monumental. And it also helps me realize that I can't really make decisions right away. And my intuition, while I tap into my intuition all the time, they say like with an emotional manifesting generator, we're only like sure like 75% of the time because of our emotional waves. And at first I thought that was a really bad thing, but it's really about just like riding the wave, letting whatever come up, letting it go down, and then bringing myself back to that clarity and realizing that I can make decisions aside from my emotions. Understanding that has been so helpful. I'm still learning how to do that because, of course, I am emotional. Like everyone will be like, oh my God, you're so dramatic. And now I'm like, no, I'm just an emotional MG. Makes total sense. So I feel like learning that was so vital for me and learning how to work with that.
Cool. I'm actually a non-emotional, which learning that was equally as just amazing, and understanding that a lot of the things, well, I'm very empathetic as well, but what I can pick up on people's emotions and can take them in as my own, but that they're not actually mine. I'm just feeling what someone else is feeling. So same thing. I love human design. It's so interesting.
I know.
What was something that you loved to do as a child?
Draw. I would draw all that. I'm actually, so I just got an iPad and I've been playing around with Procreate. And just like, I was thinking about maybe doing content with it, but I've just been like drawing and doodling and like really tuning back into that childlike wonder. Cause I was an only child. So I loved being alone. And I would always kind of like lock myself in my room and just draw for hours and like create all these pictures. And I just would like do that. So I'm really like, it's this new childlike excitement that I have, just like doing it in a different way. And I've been playing around with it a lot. And it's just been so much fun. And I think that tuning into your inner child and the things that you love to do with when you were a child is so important. And that's another thing for tuning into your magical gifts. So like, what did you do as a child when you really like enjoyed living and didn't have all these worries in some ways? Drawing was definitely one of them. So it's like a meditative and also just bringing me back to that connection to myself in such a like beautiful way.
Cool. I love our childlike nature. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Next question. And if you don't want to answer this, totally fine. I can edit this part out. What is your opinion on using plant medicine as a healing or spiritual tool for our greater good when used with intention?
I am so on board with it. I've been microdosing with copy, which is 1/2 of what's usually used in ayahuasca ceremonies. And it's the non-DMT portions of the plant. And I have felt a deeper connection to myself. And it has just been such a beautiful way to connect to myself. And I also feel like it's connecting me to nature when I can't necessarily be outside. And the way that it impacts my energy and the way that I feel while taking it is just feeling like this deeper connection to myself and to everything around me. I've never been to a ceremony. It's something that I really would love to do. It hasn't worked out yet. And we'll see. Like, I'm not dying to do it where I need to like plan something right away, but I just am very much an advocate about doing it intentionally without that like need to do it is very important. So I definitely take a lot of breaks in between, like sometimes I'll go months without doing it and then I'll come back to it. And just really discerning, like, am I using it intentionally or am I using it for a crutch for something? And then realizing, okay, this is when I stop using it. So being very intentional about it is very important. And I'm definitely an advocate for using it.
Cool. Especially too, noting on what you said earlier with the use of Adderall and cigarettes and things like that. And too, just the sacredness of the medicine and just the difference in what is available to us. So
definitely.
Cool. All right. Final question that everyone gets. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin? And how has it evolved since then?
We'll say like my active spiritual journey began, I would say like when I got that numerology report. So that was in 2012, maybe 2013, I'm not sure, but it has evolved so much into something I could have never imagined, because it was like, oh, I was just really interested also because like the numbers, it was like I was doing accounting, so I thought the numbers were really interesting. And it just blew open this whole portal of realizing the connectedness of everything, and really just constantly leaning into that connectedness has expanded everything. So at first it was numerology and I was like, oh, this is why I am the way I am. I kind of got fixated on that and the stories. And I'm like, oh, it was meant to be this way. Like I was meant to go through that hard thing, and like kind of fixating on that. And now I'm like, wait, I get to choose who I am. I get to choose what I do. I have the power of choice, which means I am a sovereign being. So it's evolved since then, because at first it was kind of like figuring out why, but not really doing much about it. And now it's just constantly like tuning in, and I'm like, where do I have power? And it's everywhere. And realizing that I can't control everything, but I also control my response to everything has been, I think, the key to my life and the key to my evolution. So I think that it really was like a lot more about at first figuring out why, and now like figuring out my why and how I show up. Yeah.
Yeah. Erin, you're so special. Thank you so much for just holding space here today, sharing so openly from your heart. You could truly feel it. And yeah, this is a conversation I'm definitely going to cherish. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy we're connected.
All right, what an incredible episode. Oh my gosh, isn't Erin so wonderful? And she just has such a beautiful outlook and way of carrying herself through life. I truly find her to be such an expander. I hope you all connected just as deeply with her as I did. And again, I so recommend working with her in some capacity. And last but not least, if you feel inspired and enjoyed today's conversation, I would be honored to have you rate and review the show. Your ratings and reviews, they truly just mean so much to me and our wonderful guests. And in return, they equally help me grow the show, continue bringing on more incredible guests. So yeah, if you feel inspired, again, I would just be honored to have you rate and review the show. And also be sure to drop in on Instagram. Let me know what you're enjoying about the show. Send over any guest or topic recommendations, or even just say hi. I love connecting with all of you. You can find me at Loving Your Own Soul. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, also, I definitely invite you and highly encourage you to join my private Facebook group, a modern wellness community, as we have some really fun conversations going inside of there. Thank you again for tuning in, being a part of this community. Thank you, Erin, for holding space with us. And I so look forward to continuing the journey with you again soon.